My mom advised me to speak out about this situation I've had to deal with in hopes that I can finally move on from all this. So maybe I won't feel so guilty every night. My name is Gonzalo, and I can't simply continue to keep this to myself. It's been eating me from the inside, and I just can't say nothing about it anymore. I just can't. And it's all because of that thing. It started a couple of weeks ago. It was a Saturday night, I believe. I was just playing some games, and I heard someone knocking on my door. It was Sam, but he didn't look... Well, something was obviously wrong with him. He looked like he had seen a ghost or something like that. He was shaky and pale, like I'd never seen before. And even before I could even say a word, he just pulled out this flash drive out of his pocket and put it in my face, telling me to take it. I tried talking to him. I wanted to explain to him what the fuck was going on and what was all that about. What did he look like that? Why did he look like that? What had happened? But every time I tried to speak, he kept interrupting me, asking me to take it. So I did. So we could stop that, and maybe then we could talk, but I wasn't ready for what happened next. I just remember him crying, and then screaming, covering his face and screaming until he just collapsed there, in my front door. My body froze there, and I couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't help him. I just stood there, until I was able to yell for help, and I'd like to be able to forget the rest of that night. The funeral was disturbing, to say the least. Watching all my friends' family, our friends, mourning over him was heartbreaking. I could even say a word the whole day. From what I was told, his death was caused due to a sudden seizure, and I was never asked my side of the story about the events that night. The next few days were absolutely horrible. I couldn't sleep. I could even go out of my room. His face just kept appearing when I closed my eyes. Then I remembered the flash drive he had given me that night. I hadn't even thought about it ever since that day. So I went to check the dirty laundry, and there it was, still inside of the pocket of my pants. At first I was scared. What could be inside that drive? I didn't know if it had some malware of any kind or something like that, but eventually I had the courage to plug it in my old computer, figuring it wouldn't do much harm there. I regret that decision. Once my computer turned on, I quickly plugged in the drive to see what was inside it. A window opened, showing that the drive had just one file inside of it. A folder with the name written in some kind of language I couldn't understand. It honestly looked like gibberish. When I opened it, I found inside a file called and it seemed to be some kind of executable file. So I clicked it without thinking about it, which was pretty stupid to do looking back on it, but gladly it didn't open. just displaying an error message. It was then when I noticed that the name was misspelled, missing some letters. So I just fixed the name of the file and it worked. I once again double-clicked on the file. The screen turned to black for a moment, and then a loading bar appeared. It was a fucking game. A fucking game. I didn't know how to feel at the moment, and honestly, I still don't. Once the game finished loading, it showed a 8-bit version of the Sonic 1 intro screen. I knew I was a big Sonic fan, but was this game the reason he gave me that drive? I started to think that the flash drive had nothing to do with his death, but the fact that he was so desperate, how much he insisted on me having the pen drive. I couldn't just brush it off like that. It didn't make sense. It didn't make sense at all. Then I noticed something. The text at the bottom of the screen, where the usual Sega text and date were meant to be, just displayed this mess that I could barely describe as text, just like the one used to name the folder. Even though I felt like I shouldn't, I pressed enter and started playing. At first, it was all just that I suspected, nothing out of the ordinary. I should have stopped playing at that point, but I just kept on pushing, believing there would be something, anything that could help me piece together what was going on. I did notice something's wrong. Every time I got hit by an enemy, instead of the usual dropping rings, I just dropped these red squares all over the place. It's just the bug, I thought. And I didn't pay much attention to it. But something deep inside me made me think something was off. Something felt so wrong, and I couldn't put my finger on it, so I kept playing. Act 2 didn't have many changes. Same visual bug with the rings. Act 3, on the other hand, was a whole nother thing. The screen that usually showed the island had changed. Everything was covered in red and black. It even looked remotely close to what was before. His own name, on the other hand, displayed the same gibberish text I saw on the title screen. The act itself was just as messed up as the title card. Everything was so saturated, hard to look at. My rings were gone, and my lives were too. The music was messed up too. It poorly looped and was horrible to see and listen to. I tried erasing the game multiple times and it wouldn't allow me to. And for some reason, I didn't think about turning off the computer. I just kept on playing. I moved forward and backward, trying to see if anything changed, but it all stayed the same. So as I reached the Eggman boss fight location, Eggman was just as broken as the rest of the game. Before I could even hit him once, I died. The game froze and then a loud scream blasted through my computer. The screen turned red, weird text all over the screen while Sonic just froze in his death animation. I covered my ears, it was painful to hear, it really was. And then suddenly stopped. I looked back at my screen, and I felt something that I only felt the same night collapsed on my door. I just froze. I couldn't move, I couldn't look away, I wanted to cry. I didn't understand what was going on. I was scared. I thought I would end up just like Sam. That whatever this game was about to do to me, what it did to him. Distorted music started playing as the game over countdown slowly ticked down. Sonic, or whatever that thing was, looked at me. Even though it was just a sprite, I actually felt watched, like it was staring deep into my soul. As the countdown grew closer to 0, this thing, it wasn't Sonic anymore. It began to deform. It was smiling. It was enjoying my fear. I couldn't even recognize his face due to how stretched it was. I felt like I needed to get out of there. I felt like I was in danger at the time and I had to get out. The countdown reached the last seconds, and I don't know if it was fear or fight or flight or reaction, but I punched my screen. It was fucking broken. I had glass all over my hand, but it was gone. I took the pen drive out of my computer and began stepping on it until I broke it. I was so shaky. I couldn't stop shaking. I was crying, so filled with adrenaline. I didn't feel the bleeding in my hand. I couldn't stand even being in that room anymore. Explaining why my computer screen was destroyed and why I punched it was hard. I couldn't say Sonic the Hedgehog tried to kill me. I'll be so fucking ridiculous, so I lied. I haven't talked to anyone about that day. I don't have anything to prove it. I can't explain it, I can't show it. I don't even know what that is. If it was a game, or some kind of being inside that game, I don't fucking know. I really don't. If anything, I just want to forget this ever even happened, because I don't want to even think about what would have happened if I let that countdown reach 0. I just want to forget it!